Hi there and welcome back to the channel. Today is the day after WWDC 2024's main keynote announcements, and so I figured I'd make a quick video to kind of tell you about the highlights and my thoughts about what we've seen, because boy, it's been an action-packed year again with changes in areas that maybe you didn't fully expect, but it's really, really good. So we started off the keynote with a really cool intro where everybody jumped out of airplanes and they had a song by Motley Crue playing, and honestly it got me instantly hyped for the entire event, so that was really cool. Then they showed us a bunch of Apple TV content, which, to be honest, I didn't care much for. There's going to be new shows, new films, and all this kind of stuff. It's exactly what you'd expect from Apple and Apple TV, I would assume. The first actual OS that they talked about was visionOS. And what I found is that visionOS is mainly going to get a lot of quality of life improvements, like some new and improved gestures and some new ways to see stats about your device, and a lot of focus on immersive content. So they actually have a new kind of content format where you get 180 degrees of video around you so that you're pretty much inside of the content, and you get immersive sound and all of that stuff, and that sounded really exciting. Now, I don't own a Vision Pro, but if I did, I would be very, very, very excited for all that immersive content. You can also tell that visionOS was sort of developed in a country where they don't travel by train much, because only now that they get train support. So you can use your visionOS in a plane already, and it works well, but apparently it doesn't work so well on trains in visionOS 1. visionOS 2 is going to fix that, so that's really good. Apple also worked a little bit on the ability to have external monitors in visionOS. So we can already get like an external monitor to show if you're using visionOS, and you can use it as an external display for your Mac, essentially allowing you to use your Mac with an enormous 4K display wherever you are. This display, I think, had a resolution of something like 16 by 9 or whatever, and you can now make it either wide or ultra wide. And ultra wide, they say, is the equivalent of having two regular 4K displays alongside each other. So that's really, really wide and really cool. And I think that sort of makes sense for a device like visionOS to get screens that are larger than life. Now, what I would love to see in visionOS probably 3 is the ability to actually have your macOS windows free-floating in space alongside your visionOS windows, right? Because you're now sort of constrained by this imaginary rectangle, and it would be great if we could just draw our windows wherever we want them to be. There's also some new frameworks like Tabletop Kit and with enterprise APIs and all this stuff. That looks like it's going to enable a whole lot of new kind of games on the Vision Pro, as well as professional use cases. They mentioned in the keynote examples like training. I think that is going to be really interesting to see, and it's going to be really nice for visionOS to have more kinds of apps available, because I think it's currently a little bit constrained in the kinds of things that people can and are building. So this really opens up the possibilities even more, and hopefully that'll bring Vision Pro to the mainstream a little bit better. After that, we got iOS 18, which is what I was most excited for, because iOS is sort of still my main thing that I work on and the main thing that I work with. And honestly, when they presented all the features, I felt like we didn't get that much. And to me, that was a big sign that we were going to get an AI component at the end of the keynote, which we did. They kind of hinted at it before talking about iOS 18, but it really became obvious, to me at least, during this section, that we would be getting a big chunk of artificial intelligence towards the end. So we've got a relatively small feature set, but we are getting things like home screens where we can put icons wherever we want, which is really, really nice. So we're no longer constrained by what Apple allows us to do with the grid that we had for, 18 years. So that's really good. We also get specific icons for dark mode, so developers can now specify which icon should be used for light mode settings and dark mode settings, which I think is pretty cool. And we can also do tinting on our app icons. I tried it for a bit. It's cool, but to be completely honest with you, I don't think it looks that good for most apps. Maybe it's just because I'm not a designer and I'm not great at picking colors, but most colors that I saw, I was like, nah, I don't really like the way that looks. What I do love is the updates that we got in Control Center. We have a new layout for Control Center. We can now add more controls. We have different pages in Control Center with controls. And as developers, we can also add our own controls to it. Now, I'm pretty sure that these are app intent based, which means that it should be relatively easy to add support for that. You can definitely expect me to make a bunch of videos on that kind of stuff because I think it's really exciting that Control Center is going to become more and more useful. What I also like is that we can now resize controls, and we can also resize widgets by simply dragging them. That is very cool, and it makes it a lot easier to customize the home screen because before we'd have to remove a widget, re-add it, and all that stuff, and now we can just change the size if the widget supports it, so that's really good. Also, we can swap the controls that we have on home screen. By default, there's the flashlight and the camera, right? You know what I mean on the lock screen. I think we've been asking for customizations to that ever since Apple launched it, and now we're finally getting that. So that's really nice. You can put whatever you want there, so you're no longer only bound to flashlight and camera. So that's really good. We also got a bunch of stuff for messages like rich text and redesigned tapbacks, and we can tap back with whatever we want, so no longer just a handful of reactions that Apple designed for us. We can also use emojis and that stuff. We also got a redesign for Mail that looks really awesome. It is AI powered, so Mail will also group different kinds of emails together. We'll get like email summaries and that kind of stuff, but that's not available until Apple's Intelligence AI ships later this year. So they showed that and it looks really cool, but we won't be able to play with that for a little while. They also gave Photos yet another overhaul. I feel like they do big things with Photos every year. It gets a lot better every year, but I am honestly not that big of a Photos app user. So to me, these changes are cool, but I probably won't use them much, but they look really awesome. I'm mostly excited for the ability to edit photos, which they showed off later on in the keynote, where you can sort of remove distracting elements from a photo simply by circling it. That looked really cool. I'm pretty sure I'll be using that a bunch. And then we went over to watchOS. Also only a handful of updates. They really erased through all the changes that they had. So on the watch, we get live activities now, which is really good. We had them on the phone for a while, but now you can actually have them on your watch face as well. Whenever you are on that view where they have the stack of cards, live activities will be added to that. So that's really nice. What I really love, and I actually talked about that a while ago on X, is to have the ability to have day-based activity goals. So if you have like workouts on Mondays and Thursdays, you can actually bump your activity goal a little bit so that it's not like on days that you actually work out, you sort of crush it and you double your goal, and other days you struggle to get your 600-700 calories in. So that's really good. I think that'll really make the activity rings a lot more useful for people that have fluctuating activity levels throughout the week, because now they can actually just adjust their goals. What I also love is that you can now sort of pause your streak, which means that if you are, for whatever reason, forced to rest or you can't reach your activity goals for a little while, you can just pause and keep your streak so you're not losing it just because you fell ill or something like that. So that's really cool. There's also a new app called Vitals where we can monitor how we're doing in life, like heart rates, blood pressure, whatever. There were a whole bunch of metrics that they showed. It looked really interesting if you're into following how you're doing with your health, but I think as a developer, probably there wasn't much interesting there. The thing that I absolutely loved and that I can't wait to try is the new photo wallpaper thing that we get on the watch. It actually looked like they will take a photo, sort of layer it with foreground and background, allow you to change colors. It will cleverly position the time. It looked really impressive. I'm actually installing the beta on one of my old watches as we speak, and hopefully that feature is in there and supported by that old watch, because it looked really awesome and I really want to see if it works as well as they showed us in the keynote. Then we're on iPadOS. They showed us a new tab bar design, which looks really awesome. They really erased through that part, but it's a really big change in how tab bars look on iPad. I'm going to be trying that out for sure. I really hope that it allows us to keep using the original tab view component in SwiftUI so that we can use it on iOS to get the tab bar at the bottom, and then on the Mac to get that new, on the iPad, I mean, to get that new style tab bar. They showed some really beautiful animations with that, where it pops into being a sidebar and back to being a tab bar, and it looked really good, really smooth, and I really hope that it works as well as they advertise, because I really, really like it, and I can't wait to try that. The notes update that they showed is really amazing. They showed all this handwriting stuff. I think the handwriting is not available yet in the current betas, because I tried it this morning. I couldn't find it, but they call it Smart Script, and it looks incredible. It allows people like me who have terrible handwriting to actually do handwritten notes that look passable. So that's really awesome. We also have the ability to write down mathematical equations, and that's really, really powerful. You can just write math like 2 + 2 = 4, or even like an equation with x, and it will just give you an output for x value. Like if you write x × 10 equals, then it will actually allow you to specify a value for x. You can drag it to change the value, and then they will actually write the answer behind the equals. It's really, really cool. You really have to try it out, because I think that is going to be really helpful if you're doing math homework and that kind of stuff, to just be able to write down what it is you're working on. Speaking of math, we also have a calculator app on iPad. It only took them about 18 years to get there, but we have it. We have calculator on the iPad, and it looks like a really powerful calculator too. It also has support for those handwritten calculations, so that's really awesome. I like it. I love it. And that's really all they had for iPad as well. So again, smart, action-packed, a lot of stuff, very short, probably because they wanted to save as much time for the AI part as possible. After the iPad, we went into the Mac. macOS 15, it's called Sequoia, and my favorite new thing that it has is iPhone mirroring and controlling, which means that we can actually keep our iPhones in our pocket, build to it from Xcode wirelessly, and then interact with our iPhone on the Mac. So we can mirror the screen of our iPhone to the Mac, and it's interactive. So you can just launch any app that you want, even if it's not an app you're developing. You can just work with your iPhone, use any app that you want, and it'll look and feel like the simulator, I guess, except it's on your real phone. So that's really powerful. What's really cool is that if you have your phone on your desk, for example, and you're using it on your Mac, the phone itself will just stay locked, right? So nobody can see what you're doing on your phone, but your Mac is actually controlling the phone without showing it on the screen. So that's pretty cool. Also means that you can use that standby view that you can use on the phone, where you have it like in landscape mode and sitting on your desk as sort of a companion. I don't use that at all. I keep forgetting that it even exists. But it's pretty nice that we can do that and then also develop on our phones. I think that is going to really make debugging on an actual device a lot easier, because we don't have to get our phone out of our pockets and plug it in and all that kind of stuff. What's also cool is that our notifications that we get on the phone sync into the Mac, and you can click on the notification. It will actually bring up the iPhone mirroring and launch you into the app that sent the notification. So it looked really seamless, and I can't wait to give it a go, because it really looks magical and really powerful. So yeah, that's going to be a fun thing to play with. There's also a password manager app now. I'll have to see if it replaces 1Password for me. I doubt it, to be honest. 1Password is very, very ingrained in me and in my family life, so I don't think we'll ditch 1Password anytime soon. But there's going to be a password app available on the Mac, on iOS, and the iPadOS, so it's going to be everywhere that you would expect it to be, so that's really cool. The last thing I wanted to mention is window management. We can actually start dragging windows to corners of the screen, and the Mac will then suggest to make that window like half the screen or a quarter of the screen and that kind of stuff. This feature kind of is funny to me that they released it now, because I just set up like window management shortcuts in Raycast, and so now we get it in the Mac. It looks like the Mac's version is pretty limited to like halves or quarters or that kind of stuff, but we'll have to see if it holds a candle to what Raycast can do. For now, I'll probably be using Raycast on my main machine anyway, because I'm not going to put the beta on that. And so that's what I really wanted to mention for the Mac. Let's move on to Apple Intelligence. Apple Intelligence obviously was the star of the show. They had a keynote that was about 1 hour, 40 minutes, and I think about 40 minutes of that was spent on Apple Intelligence. It's a really kind of fun name for it because AI, artificial intelligence, but Apple goes, no, we're Apple, we'll call it Apple Intelligence. So we can say AI and it will mean what Apple wants it to mean, I guess. So that's fun. In any event, we'll only get that on very recent devices, right? So it's going to be deeply integrated into the operating system. It's going to allow us to do really powerful and cool things, but only on very recent devices. It requires an A17 Pro chip, which means iPhone 15 Pro or newer. And iPhone 15 Pro is the current flagship model. So that's really cutting edge. iPhone 15 does not get Apple Intelligence, and anything before that does not get Apple Intelligence either. So it's 15 Pro and up. For the iPad, it's going to be any iPad with an M1 chip or newer. For the Mac, it's going to be any Mac with an M1 chip or newer. So you need M1 or newer, or you need an iPhone 15 Pro or iPhone 15 Pro Max to experiment with Apple Intelligence when it comes out later this fall. So it's not going to be available immediately. It's going to take a little while later this year for that to become available to us. Now, I did see that Xcode gets code completion, code generation, like smart stuff, which is also going to be AI driven, but the release notes for Xcode 16 already say that you don't just need an M1 Mac, you also need 16 gigabytes of RAM. So I wonder if that requirement is going to carry over to the Mac for Apple Intelligence, or if that's just an Xcode thing. So that's going to be interesting to actually see how much of Apple's AI features will be available and on which devices. There's also going to be a feature that allows us to have our Swift code written on the server. So that's looking really cool as well, but we don't get that right now. And I don't know if that's going to be available on older devices because that does use the cloud. So we have local code generation as well as remote code generation, and these are two different artificial intelligences. So we'll have to see how that sort of pans out. Now, we'll also be able to have deeply integrated AI, which is really, really cool. It means that basically we get things like text analysis on screen all the time. So Siri will know exactly what you're looking at. So if you're trying to plan a meeting, Siri will know what you're looking at right now. It will know your calendar. It will know how long it takes to get from A to B and all these things. And it'll be able to help you suggest good times. You can say things like just on your phone. If you're looking at an email, you can say, oh, call them now. And it will know like you're looking at an email from a friend and it'll just call your friend immediately and all these kinds of things. So that's going to be really powerful. We'll also be able to take pieces of text and rewrite them, reword them, or fix spelling mistakes and these kinds of things. And it's going to be available on all devices. Now, as a developer, your app will have support for this out of the box if you're using just a standard text field. So that's really cool. And it'll really allow us to work with text a lot, basically, as users. You're going to be able to actually make sure that that email that you're trying to send has the kind of wording that you're looking for. It could be more formal, more informal, and those kinds of things. Really cool stuff. They're also using Apple's intelligence to summarize notifications and improve the notification sender situation, which I think is a much needed overhaul because, well, notifications on iOS are pretty bad. So it's going to have summaries for notifications and show you what's in there. Like if a group chat has a ton of messages, it'll just show you a quick summary of what was discussed. So that's going to be really nice. For email, you also get like in your list of emails, you get the subject, header, and then a little summary of what's in the email, like the topics. That's going to be very cool. There's also like AI generated images, so you can like generate whatever you want. They showed some demos. Some of the pictures looked really cool. Most of them looked very standard AI, so I wasn't too impressed with that, but I'm pretty sure that that's going to improve over time with new OS updates. So that's going to be sweet. And really what it showed is that Siri is going to be so much smarter about what it knows that's happening on your phone, like really making it a personal assistant that knows everything about you and what you're doing. but it does all of this on device. So basically, it sounds like Apple is trying to get privacy really ingrained into what they're doing with AI. So they don't want to send any data off device if they can avoid it. They do have support for a remote AI as well, so you'll have your local stuff, but then for more powerful requests or more heavy requests, they can go to the cloud where they don't store any data, everything is encrypted, so they really made a point of explaining how that does not impact our privacy as users of Apple's AI at all. If you're currently using Siri Kit in your apps, what's going to be really cool is that Siri will also be able to interact with your app, right? So Siri Kit uses app intents, and Apple's AI is going to be able to dig into apps and take actions based on what you were doing. So if you're using Siri Kit and app intents, your app will actually be part of Apple's AI ecosystem out of the box. So if a user wants to perform an action in your app, they can just say it to Siri, and Siri will know to go to your app and perform a specific action. So that's going to be very cool to see how apps integrate with Apple's intelligence, because it's going to be a very big deal. What's interesting to me is that none of that is in the current beta, so it feels like we got very little to work with in the current beta, but there's so much coming later on. So I think there's going to be a beta release, hopefully a beta release. I hope they don't put this in like a 18.1 kind of thing. And I hope that we're going to get an 18.0 beta that just sort of supercharges your phone with all these new AI features, because they look really cool and I can't wait to play with them. They're deeply integrated into the OS and they're going to be awesome to use. What I found interesting and a little confusing at first is that Apple has their own AI, but then it also allows you to use things like ChatGPT for requests or features that Apple's AI might not be that good at. So it'll actually offer to use a different AI for certain tasks when relevant. I guess that could be really, really powerful, but it did feel a little bit confusing to me when I watched the keynote. So I'll just have to see how that works when it's available. All right, that's really everything I wanted to share with you about yesterday's keynote. I'm going to be experimenting with the betas now, and I will see you in a future video. Do not forget to subscribe and like and notifications on and everything to stay up to date with what I'm doing during WW and after, and I will see you in the next video.